call to order the special meeting of the Costa Mesa Sanitary District, February 22nd. Board of Directors is present. This is all 5 of the Board of Directors are present. First item on the agenda is to take public comments. Anyone from the public wishing to comment on this item? All right, seeing no one, then we'll go directly to item 2, the consideration regarding the purchase of 290 Colorado Avenue. And Scott, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm going to start with item 2A, which is the City of Costa Mesa Planning Commission staff report. As you know, this is one of the contingencies to acquire the building at 290 Colorado Avenue, and this is because the city staff has to go to the Planning Commission, and the Planning Commission has to make a decision that our relocation of the building conforms to their 2000 general plan. And as you'll see, I gave you a copy of the staff report, and their recommendation, staff's recommendation, is that it does conform to the general plan, and they're recommending that the commission adopts a resolution. And for public information, if you scroll down to page 4 on the staff report, the city staff mentions the public benefit for us relocating to the new building. There's several public benefits. One of them is obviously the parking issue. Here there's 14 parking spaces. One of those is limited handicap. When we have meetings like today or study sessions, staff has to park at the senior center and walk over here, so we make sure there's enough parking for the board and for the public. The new facility has 41 parking spaces, and there'll be 2 handicap stalls, so there'll be plenty of parking at the new facility. The second benefit is that the new building will also increase capacity for the public to come to our meetings. I mean, as you can see here, when we have the screen down, there's only 4 chairs available to the public. Where the new building will hopefully we can have expand to at least 30 people can come sit comfortably in the new building, and that room could also be used as a multi-purpose room where we can use it for rent it out for nonprofit groups who want to use the building. And then the third reason is that, and you'll see later in the presentation, I have the latest improvements of the building. There'll be some vacant offices, and we can hold on to those for some future growth in the organization. If we want to hire our own inspector, if we want to go hire our own engineer or any other staff, we have that option. So those are 3 benefits the city staff concurred, and that they are public benefits, and that's why they're recommending the adoption of the resolution, which is going on tonight. At 6 o'clock, I will be there without consent. So if they don't pull it, they might pull it, and discuss it, but once it's adopted, then it's up to the board to make that down payment. And we can talk about that when we talk about that in closed session.
Now, I know the parking's non-conforming by 2 spots.
A couple. By 3. By 3.
Yeah,
44, yeah.
And there was, city staff had recommended that if need be, they could go to smaller spots, compact.
Yeah, well, they're not recommending that in the staff.
No. Yeah, I know, but it was an option.
It's an option, sure. And originally we were going to put a generator there, but I decided, because I don't want to give up precious parking spaces. So my thought was we could put a UPS, uninterrupted power supply, a power system, in the IT room, and those systems can last hours to days. And my thinking was to get a system large enough that when the power goes up, our facility will still be operational for several hours, which will give us time to bring a portable generator to the facility.
Yeah, also, right now the zoning is non-conforming, and seeing where it's at, they would allow us to go ahead. We could go ahead with non-conforming and not do anything. Yeah.
Do we intend to do the compact spots?
No, we don't.
Not on the list?
No.
Not unless the planning commission
Right. So that's available for any questions. If not, I'll go on to item 2B.
Any indication that anybody's going to pull up to that?
No, that's anything. No.
Have you checked with, the discussion about the engineer and inspector being in the building? We were also talking about potentially renting part of the building. Have you talked to Rob about being in that building?
Yeah, we can't do that because that creates a whole other issues that district council and I can talk about it at a study session if you want to, but what it basically can $5,000, you're making basically rather than an employee, and there's some retirement implications, PERS implications by doing that. So we really can't have them in that building.
I'd like to hear it in the study session in more detail.
No problem.
Chuck, you look like you want to say something.
No, I'm
You're good.
just soaking it in, yeah.
Anything else for staff? Okay, let's move on.
So item number 2B is the asbestos survey report, the asbestos in lead paint. So we hired a consultant to do a survey and sampling of asbestos in the building. The bad news is there is some asbestos, but the good news, the remediation is minimal, less than $10,000, which I included the cost to do that. So that's good. So that's real good. So most of it looks like to be in the walls. So if we do any demos, we'll have to do some remediations, but as you said in the proposal, it's going to be less than $10,000.
Remediations when we do the alterations
Yes.
or before?
Alterations, we do alterations. Because when you disturb the asbestos, that's what becomes toxic.
Do you have any indication of these spots that we're not renovating? I mean, typically, if you don't touch it,
Right. It would be fine.
you leave it alone. I
Right.
mean, you don't need it.
Right, right.
We ran into that at Orange County Sand District in the office building, and we were unpleasantly surprised to find it in several offices. How will staff know in the future, 20 years from now, where that asbestos is? Is there something going to be posted someplace? So the future employees aren't at risk, because staff then doesn't know where the asbestos is. What, does the report show where the asbestos is?
It does. It does
Yes,
show
page
that.
7.
Yeah.
If you go to page 7 on the report, there's actually, I think, 3 spots that have asbestos, and there's 2 spots that have lead, and, okay, so I'm on
Your
page...
pages are different than
Yeah,
mine.
their pages are different. So I'm on page 4,
3.1.
yeah, where it says, it's page 4, at the top, on the right-hand side of her report.
Page 7?
It's page 4.
Okay. As
Okay.
long as,
And so there's 3 spots that have asbestos, so we'll remediate all of those. And then there's 2 walls that have a certain color of paint, and the paint has lead in it, so the paint will be removed and remediated. So it's 5 spots, we'll remediate everything, and that will take care of the entire issues in the building. And so it's $10,000 to remediate it, we're not leaving anything, there's nothing else to do, it will all be done. So everything that exceeded what was considered normal limits were these 5 spots, and I'm trying to remember how to read this list.
I don't think this list was in the electronic report. But,
Anyway, it's an exceeding, it's kind of hard to tell on here, but it's an exceeding thing, and so it was like conference room 2, wait, let me figure it out.
Like the coffee room and
Yes, it's cubicle area 1, that burgundy wall, burgundy drywall, has it, and I think it's this storage room 2, I'm on page 5 right now. And this, like the storage closet
okay,
2.
Okay, we got the report. I'm just
Yeah.
concerned that a plumber comes in, he
No.
decides he's gonna do something, and how is he gonna know if there's asbestos there?
There is no asbestos after we remediate.
There won't be. Okay,
Right.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Anything else on 2B?
okay, I agree.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mr. So item number 2C are the tenant improvements, and let me put up on the screen, which is also in the staff report, the proposed improvements. So this is what the building looks like right now, and back in January we talked about certain improvements, like removing these offices here to make this the boardroom / community room. This would be like a room for your closed sessions and your public meetings. The bathrooms would have to be remodeled to kind of ADA. Make this into another conference room / EOC. This will be like a hallway. Right now it's just two walls. We're going to make a hallway so it'll be easy access for staff to get around. So, so the first draft was presented to the city. This is what it looked like. So this is your big community room right here. We'll bring a wall down here, and then you can, have your closed sessions here. This is the plan room right over here. So when members of the public come in the office, they come here, sit down. There's a planning table right here. Dora's office will be here, and all the plans will be right here. This is the first attempt for the restrooms, but we had to do some more modifications, which I'll show you in a second. And then this is the EOC, another conference room, and then we had this hallway. So after the first review, the city requested some additional improvements, and this is the latest one that Bob Thornton met with the city last Friday, I believe it was. But one thing is additional exit doors. So we made one here. We closed this out, put a door here as well. So there'll be two exits, one here, one here. There'll be double doors here, so easy access to the boardroom. There was a door here that's removed, so now we just have one door here. Here's that hallway now I was talking about. We also added a door here for Dora, so you can come over here. Bathrooms are modified. We need to put a stove. We're going to put a stove over here in the break room. But that's it. And as you can see, the lobby is be fully secured. There's a door here, door there, door there. So people couldn't walk in. So that's pretty much it. I think it's a very functional building. You have vacant office. The vacant office is one here, one here, one here, and possibly one there too. So there's again room for growth. But it's definitely a very functional building that can meet our needs.
Where's the receptions?
Possibly right here. We go in here and there's a reception right here. I think it's either here or here, I can't remember. Might be that one.
Scott, was the only additional thing the city put in was the additional door?
Well, they wanted to expand the bathrooms a bit more, so they were a little wider, and they wanted another exit door, and then they wanted an additional handicap stall, and that was it.
Then it would be ADA approved?
Yes, yes, definitely, absolutely. And then in your staff report, on there's also a list of items of other improvements I have on there, and please put that up, yeah. So let me move my staff report real quick here. So you go to the last page of your staff report, you have the coloring proposed upgrades. So the bullet point number 1 is the 10 improvements, and that's what I just showed you here. All those other bullet points, those are possible additional costs that we think we would have to do to upgrade the building to meet our needs, like the audio visual requirements, buying some chairs and furniture for the community room, buying the UPS system that I mentioned, the power system, outside monument signs. Another thing I just thought about the weekend, our display case for trophies. We're going to try to construct a new one for the lobby. I didn't think about that. Maybe some additional IT wiring has to be done. We won't know until we get in there. So I just want to bring this to your attention that what I would like to do, if we want to move forward with this building, is to bring all this together with you. And here's this one big budget. And if you think it's too high, then we can cut out, remove some items on this list. But you'd be comfortable what the budget should be, and then whatever that amount is, it's $250,000, $500,000, whatever it is, then we can add that to the financing.
When do we have to determine that? Because I know these are suggestions.
Yeah, what I'm hoping I can get this back to you in a month, because if we do proceed forward, I've hired a consultant. I would like to hire a consultant expert in planning and moving, and he would help me contact contractors and get a cost proposal for you.
Why can't Thornton have already done this?
What's that?
Thornton's an architect, and he does this every day. He can go down through there. I'm a little dismayed that you don't have some of these costs already.
Well, it's because I don't want to. I just don't want to have numbers floating for. I want to have hard, good numbers, and we couldn't present this plan to the contractors until the city has signed off on it. And so that's what we have. So when the city says, okay, you're good to go, then we would show contractors this plan, and they can give us some cost estimates. I don't.
80% or 90% of what you have on here didn't change from the time you had the initial concept till the city finally approved it.
They haven't approved it yet. That's not.
When the city will finally approve it.
Have you spoken to the city as far as the signage on the outside between the monument sign and how much we're allowed?
No, nothing like that yet.
I noticed it's not added here for proposed budget, so it'd be interesting to have it in there for the proposed budget.
Well, the monument sign is just one of our items of the monument sign in here, so we would definitely talk to the city and come back to what we can do. How much that would cost.
Sometimes you're allowed not only the monument sign, but also something across the building.
Right.
You can always have something on the
Yeah.
building.
Yeah.
No
So
matter
that's what
what.
I'm thinking.
Well, there's a monument sign already out there. We
I
just
know
gotta change
there
the
is.
wording.
Yeah.
For
And they have.
$100 you can get a banner.
Yeah. You want to go that way?
And what about our flagpole?
They don't have a flagpole.
Big,
We
great
have to install
big
one. That's why I had this on this
We
list.
can't take ours.
I won't leave it here.
Oh, okay.
It's kind of hard to get out of
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
It'd be cheaper to buy a new one than it would be to move the old one.
The fine one.
Okay, any other questions?
Okay, thank you, Mr. I'm going to turn over 2D to Mark Davis to go over the financing again with you. Mark, what do you got?
Okay, thanks, Scott. Mr. President, board members, just recap over what we talked about at your January board meeting. We see a couple different options on financing the building. One is through a lease purchase arrangement with the CSDA Finance Corp. The advantages of doing this lease purchase arrangement is that it's going to preserve your liquidity and allow you to spread the cost of that asset over its period of benefit. The disadvantage is that you won't own the asset outright to begin with. It will be encumbered, and that you will need to budget your lease payment each year for the period of the lease term. We've just been talking about round numbers of $4 million as that the amount to finance through a lease purchase agreement. That's not set. Sometime after you decide what your improvements are that you want to do, then we'll refine that number. But just for discussion purposes, the last few meetings we've been talking about this $4 million number. So that at a 3.5% interest rate, which is a current market rate that CSDA Finance Corp has provided to us, that would equate to a lease payment, an annual lease payment of $281,000 over 20 years. A second option, is to pay cash for the building. You do have adequate reserves to be able to do that. The advantage is it's going to be your asset right out of right from day one. The disadvantage is it is going to diminish the liquidity of the district for other projects, the ability to be able to move quickly on things like you have that ability now with having the types of reserves that you do have on the books. One thing that wasn't in the January meeting that we brought up at that time also is potential use of grant funding for some of these types of improvements that may be available. I don't know that. That would take a little bit of staff effort to go see if there would be grants that could be available for things like the ADA improvements. The downside of that, when you do get some grant funding, and if it's going to be in federal nature, it could result in additional audit requirements for you, depending upon the amount of grant funding that could be made available to you.
When you say grant funding, I mean even things like environmental upgrade, like solar and anything we do environmentally.
There very well could be
Could
grants.
be grants in that area.
There very well could be. Staff would need to research that to be able to come back and see. Really believe that probably a combination of all three of those is where you'll end up being once you get to that point. But with that, I'm available for any questions you may have.
Is there a prepayment penalty on this lease purchase agreement?
No, there's no prepayment penalty. There is. The markets usually dictate that when you go out for a long term like that, they like to have at least a 7-year period to where you're not going to either refund it or pay it off early. And so that would be built into the lease purchase agreement. Once you reach that that period in time. If you wanted to pay the whole thing off at that point, you certainly could.
Well, my thought is, you know, if we sell this building and want to put that proceeds into the, you know, against the property, the new property, we can't do that.
Exactly, we
we're tied
can't
up.
for 7 years. So, one of the things we talked about previously was that we would have to, you know that we're gonna sell the building, and so we're gonna front some of the cash towards the purchase and then repay ourselves with the building. Or, the thing that I'm becoming more friendly with recently is that we finance what we're gonna finance, you know, including the improvements. And then when we sell the building, we use the proceeds from the building to make our lease payments, because we've already adopted our 2-year budget. And 17-18 is the year that we finish our sewer study rate increases. So what I anticipate is in that late next year, 16-17, or early 17-18, we'll start our Prop 218 process for both trash and sewer, because we'll have a couple years of organic activity. We will have used down our resources, not as fast as we intended. We haven't been doing it as fast, but we're going to get there. We'll have a couple years, and then we'll know our lease obligation and that, so that we can build all that into the budget. So I really love the idea Mark had of using the funds to make our lease payment per year, because it doesn't impact our budget at all. That's super cool for me.
Would we take those funds and put it into a separate account, or do we put it into something, I mean, in 281, say we sold this building for, and I'm just,
$1 million.
$1 million. Then we've got roughly 4 years of that 7 covered.
Exactly.
So we're really looking only at a 3-year deal before we reach what Jim was talking about with the paying
Well,
off.
and I would anticipate 3 years, because what I don't know about that building is that it's gonna be more expensive. You know, there's more janitorial, there's more electricity, there's 8 air conditioners opposed to 2. So what I anticipate is that, you know, if he's saying that it's $4 million for, you know, 281, I'm thinking it's gonna be more than that to
Well,
cover
yeah.
our administrative costs.
We're gonna triple net costs.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking it would cover the 3 years, and that would be perfect. So that's where I'm loving being now, is that whatever we finance, you know, if you want to not finance the whole thing, and so say the whole cost with everything, not bells and whistles, just everything you decide, is 4.5 million. And we have 570,000 in our fixture fees that we're gonna use towards this building. So we take the 570, knock that off the top, we finance 4 million or just less. When we sell the building, we use that to make our lease payment.
That sounds reasonable. I mean, I like the time you put into that. I think it makes, from my lay perspective, it makes sense.
Well, you had once said you had some way to cover this.
I was wrong. You were right.
Please don't do that.
Well, what he's talking about, and I don't remember exactly, so I think he
blurted it out
remembers
one day.
quickly, that about the cost of the lease payment was going to be the cost of the 2% on
Oh.
the increase per year. So 2%, we have about $5.5 million of assessment fees, and so 2% of that's about 110, 120. And so it's not gonna cover this.
He just wrote in his notes, I was finally right.
Yeah. So, there's that.
So it'll cover a third of it if we do it the way staff proposed.
Well, you know, again, it's not intended that way. You know, the percentage increase was to increase our ability to do more CIP projects and funding. So, you know, we're at that point where I'm not sure where 101 is, but, you know, we're trying to gather our funds for that and get that going. And then once that project's done, then we'll have a lot of money to go towards other projects, but, you know, that's kind of our growth right there. You know, granted, we've done a lot in the last year with hiring 2 more sewer crews and cleaning all the sewers ourselves, and, you know, we're...
Well, one more question, you know, we keep talking about $250,000 in tenant improvement, and you keep talking about $4.5 million potential for this building. Do you know something that we don't know?
I know a lot.
Well,
About the building.
no, I mean about the building.
No, I don't know any of the costs at all. Mark and I spoke with Scott last week, and he's got a resolution from the financing court, and the board has to adopt a resolution that has a not to exceed amount. And so that not to exceed amount is not, you can finance anything less than it, but you would have to have a new resolution to finance anything more. And so we were talking, I don't know if I'm thinking this, am I okay to go? Is it too late? Am I down the river already?
You're already
I'm down the
you're
river.
already good.
Okay, so we were talking about timing, and for me, I would hate to, you know, liquidate a bunch of assets or anything to finance it ourselves. I understand the building's supposed to be available to close in April, okay? Financing with the board resolutions and some stuff and, you know, closing and stuff is probably 60 days easily, okay? So if I can get it financed without having to liquidate any of our assets, because of timing, it's hardly worth it to liquidate or come up and transfer all the assets and incur all those costs for a week or 2 weeks. That would just, you know, that's just not efficient and effective. So I would love to be able to, you know, if we're gonna finance it, you know, time it so that the financing comes in for closing. And if we're not gonna finance it, then, you know, we're gonna be, as Mark always tells you, you know, we're property tax poor during the summer, and that's our high time. And, you know, now that we've got more staff, we have more consistent payrolls, and we have, you know, a lot more going on that you know, so I'd like to time the financing. I'd like to not have to front the money and then pay ourselves back. We can do that, obviously, but prefer not to.
Yeah, I just wanted to add this. You know, we have looked for years and years for a place to move to, one that actually provided for us what we needed. And there isn't anything in the city. We wanted to be in the city. And we've looked all kinds of places, and nothing has quite made it. And financially, we've considered the people that voted for us, you know, as far as what we're spending of their money. And I think this is the last straw. I think this is the important part, that we take something like this and work with it, because this is great. I mean, as far as location, as far as everything that we need, and it's our last ditch, really.
Okay, Scott, when is the lease up with the existing tenants? April what? Is it a month?
Do you know what happened when we set up in April?
End of April.
End of April?
That fits into the 60 days, isn't it? What you're talking about.
You know, that's just an estimate and stuff, and Mark and I are currently going through, you know, buying and selling houses and stuff, and she asked, you know, why do I keep throwing up random numbers? It's more, you know, to kind of get you guys to, you know, where your comfort level is, find out where that is. And Mark keeps telling me, well, there's a 10% closing cost, there's 10%. So, you know, the sale price is the sale price. That's not how much it's gonna cost us to close out, you know, the building and do all that. So there's that in there on top of all the tenant improvements that we pretty much don't have any cost for. So, you know, I'm trying to think, I wish I would have looked, but I wanna say that lovely flagpole out there cost around $11,000 or something. I mean, you know, it's like you'd be surprised, you know, it's that kind of thing.
The front lawn was $150,000.
Yeah, so you know what I mean, I kinda don't wanna,
Who the property owners that now exists be out by then, or do we have to give them time?
No, their lease is
Remember
up,
that time?
they're out looking, they've got, been in the market for a long time, and they've
I
nailed
thought
down
we were
lease.
giving them an extension.
We're giving the.
Do we have to give them a 60-day notice since they've been there longer than a year?
30-day notice is all we need, but we don't expect that they'll want that. Because, again, the tenant, there's a building owner, and it's a different entity from the tenant, and the tenant's moving. So,
Is that, Alan, is that the rule of thumb? I mean, I know that in residential, if they've been there more than a year, you gotta give them 60 days.
Yeah.
I don't know about commercial.
I'm not aware of that rule.
just 30-day notice, yeah.
One question, Wendy, what were you talking about, the 10% closing costs? What is that?
Like this.
Mark keeps
There's-
telling me.
there's-
I mean, is that cost for us?
Well, it's escrow.
I'm gonna defer
I don't know.
to,
I know, but we don't.
I'll defer to Jack on closing costs with,
Well, closing cost of 10% would be from a seller's perspective, and that would be high.
Okay, but what do we have to pay?
You just have to pay, half the escrow fee.
Just a normal
So
fee.
how
Yeah,
much is that?
title.
How do you do?
I don't know, $2,500, $3,000. It's not.
That's it, just
Yeah,
it?
from the buyer's perspective, it's not a lot. yeah.
What about a origination fee? Is there an origination fee from the lender?
from this financing, yeah, the administrative fees will range between 1% to 3%.
That's built into our lease payments.
Significant.
That would be built into the payment, right?
Oh, okay.
It's not
Probably
just
the
the amount
amount
you're
So
gonna
that makes more sense.
Okay, that's probably the 10% that we were talking about.
And that could easily be.
Well-
Who would own the building, Mark? It'd be the financing corporation?
It would be a lease purchase, just like any other type of capital lease, to where at the end of the lease term, the district would own it, but it would be encumbered. At the end of the lease term, it would become an asset of the district. I mean, let me back up. We would show it as an asset of the district from day one because it qualifies as a capital lease from an accounting standpoint. Just we have the asset, we have the liability on books, both things.
It's not held in the name of a JPA or anything?
No.
I guess, my bottom line is that, like, 4.5 million, I don't know, like, all the costs and stuff like that, but, where are you guys going to be, I'm not talking financing, I'm talking total cost of the building. Because whether it's, 4 million that we finance, because that includes, whatever it includes in it, and then we pay it down with 570,000, or, where's your threshold for paying?
Well, we
here?
won't know that until once we're in, then we'll
Once
get
the
the
city,
cost.
once we get, hopefully approval from the city, and then we can move forward with the hard costs.
Yeah.
Well, it brings us to another point, and that is a few of these expenses, I feel needs to go to the owner or the seller. Asbestos remediation, the windows, the water damage around the windows, the roof repairs. It isn't a huge number, but what's right's right, and
Is that around like 50,000 stuff?
I don't think it's that much.
Now, I've got estimates on everything. You take the recommendations of the inspector, and then the recommendations from the asbestos, it's $22,000. So the building in general was in excellent condition. I mean, there are some items of wear and tear that need to be fixed. We asked for a reduction in price based upon the estimates that we got. They said, thank you, no. That's kind of where it's sitting. And just to give you a little perspective on the history of this, is that when we started looking in November of 2014, and we looked at buildings that were over $500 a foot, and Scott and I looked at a piece of junk that was $275 a foot. So the price that we're getting for the building is $340 a foot. And there was basically 3 relevant comps last year in Costa Mesa, and they averaged out coincidentally at $340 a foot. Now the seller, since he put in the building in escrow with us on December 23rd, I mean, they're getting hammered on. People are like, this is a great building, we were late, we can get there. And the attitude of the seller's been great up until like the last 10 days. And they're like, now, we're going to give you this extension to accommodate the city, because originally it was going to be on the 16th, and now it's on the 17th. But if you guys aren't going to, it's time, and we're not giving any deductions. And we
We
put,
won't use the phrase that we normally use.
I don't want to, yeah.
In cases like that.
Yeah, it's like if you guys aren't going to perform, we're going to put the building back on the market, and we're probably going to get, at least $100 or $200 grand more, because it is a great building. I mean, it's the best building that we've looked at as terms of location, being on 2 major streets, being on a freeway off-ramp, got the best signage on the corner. I mean, it's on its own lot, there's no easements, there's no shared parking. It's just really, you know, from the seller's perspective, they might have underpriced it a little bit. So, they're not gonna give any deductions, even though I agree with Jim, that would, you know, typically be fair, and if they didn't have any other buyers, and, you know, we'd probably get it. But in this heated seller's market, we're not gonna get it.
You know, I'm sorry that we're not actually holding them up. They're holding us up. We could have closed at any time. It's them and their tenants that are, I mean, us.
Well, the seller's waiting for us to remove contingencies.
If we're gonna talk about
Yeah.
contingencies and
Yeah.
negotiations, we need to do that in closed session.
Oh,
Mark, is what you need from the board for that resolution for the financing, you need the number for the board meeting later this week?
No, what I would suggest is that, that was our original intent, was that at your meeting later this week, we would come forward with a resolution, which I've got, but recommend we don't do that now until you get your total costs ironed out. Then we could come forward with what that maximum amount is that you would feel comfortable in financing. But just what the process would involve here is, once we determine what that amount would be, we would bring the resolution to you for consideration. And considering the timing of all of this, we would probably want to schedule a special meeting to do that, so that we don't wait for another month to pass or 2 months to pass before that happens, because the clock won't start ticking on the financing until you adopt that resolution. Once that resolution gets adopted, then the CSDA Finance Corp will prepare all of the lease purchase documents and send those, the financing documents, and send those to us for our review and for Alan's review. And Alan will need to prepare an opinion that everything is okay for you to proceed with the financing. So there's some things that have to happen along the way after you adopt that resolution.
In that process, I mean, it's got to be pretty much boilerplate that they present on the agreement, right? So it's not like they're going to take a month to figure out how to do the documents. It should be ready to go once we do our resolution, right?
That's correct. They say that they can do the lease purchase financings, they can do 30 to 60 days. It just depends on how many other deals they have stacked up, who you're competing against.
I have a question, Mark. Are you looking for the exact amount we're going to borrow, or like Winnie's suggestion, put in a high amount at the beginning, and we can always come in at the lower amount? Is that what you're suggesting?
And can I just tag on to that question? It's really the question the board needs to determine is what are they politically comfortable with putting in that resolution? Not that they necessarily ask to finance that amount, but to have the contingency, but for the shock value of whatever that number would be. That would be a politically acceptable number.
That's exactly what it
Yes,
is.
that's,
Yeah, I think that's kind of what,
It's a not to exceed. And so what are you comfortable with not to exceed? And then bottom line is, what are you comfortable with paying the building? So say it costs over 1.5 to, say it costs $5 million. Okay, well, we can buy that down with $575,000. You may actually end up with all your improvements financing 4.5. Politically, like you said, is that a number you're comfortable with, whether you finance that much or not? Is a $5 million building in your future?
I don't think so. I don't either.
I think it's closer than we estimated earlier, around 4 million. Because we don't have to do all of the improvements.
Well, like HVAC, for instance.
Yeah.
I mean, it's in working condition right now.
Right.
Am I right?
It's great condition.
Yeah. There's no sense in replacing it until we have to,
Right, there's I think a 5-year span on most of them, so.
I can tell you, ultimately, I would like to borrow less than $3 million and use all of the unfunded, all of the $500,000 or $600,000 we have in this building. This is an asset. I think going forward, if we get the borrowing cost closer to $200,000, which would be the $3 million borrowing. That's my comfort level.
You know, I understand that, just to have a rebuttal position. One of the things I like about using the money that we get from selling this building over the next couple of years is, one, we've already adopted our budgets and we've set our sewer rates, and I don't have that built in. So we're gonna use up our reserves, which is gonna then take our investment levels down. And then we're tighter during the summers when we actually have, you know, no cash flow anyway. So we're gonna have, you know, assets that are gonna be, you know, have to be all liquid because we're gonna be paying bills. So that's one of my concerns, is without having all the numbers.
You asked me for my comfort level.
Yeah, no, I want, you know, everyone to have all the facts so that it's whatever the board pleases. I just, that's just a different information.
And I suppose, Wendy, that what you're suggesting, there'd be an easy calculation of what that money would cost us to pay over 4 years with, you know, some small amount, but it's gonna be an amount.
Yeah.
And then that might give a better comfort level or a less comfort level.
Yeah, the interest is not as huge because we hardly earn anything as it is. One of the other factors is that this building was paid for by past, you know, customers. And so it's, you know, would cover their interest payments until the next budget adoption. And then the future payments of that building are covered by existing. So it's kind of a nice transition from, you know, people that already paid for the building to people who will be benefiting in the future.
Well, we're going to have a discussion on the future CIP costs, and you already have information in your head on that. So at the board meeting, are we going to discuss prioritizing the future CIP work?
We were gonna try to do that in the next study session coming up.
Not this board, I don't know.
No.
Is the interest rate locked in with this lender, CSB, or whatever it is?
No, not until you go to market. This is what they're seeing right now with market deals. No, not until you go to market.
Yeah, because
You're asking if it's fixed?
well, no. I know it'll be fixed, but I mean, I'm assuming it's going to be
Yes.
fixed.
Yes.
I'm just saying there is a little volatility in the interest rate. Possibly for that much, maybe it could head downwards a little bit.
It could go down. You never know, because they have to still look at the creditworthiness of the district, and the markets will take how your creditworthiness into account when they price this deal. This is a tax-exempt financing, so the rates are going to be a little bit lower than they would be in a regular commercial type setting as well. That's the tax-exempt aspect is one of the other reasons why there's that 7-year lag, is because it's a tax-exempt deal.
Right, Scott, on the agenda, you're asking this to be an action item. You want some approval,
You know, I think,
or do you just need direction?
well, I think, yeah, directions. Do you want to wait? Do you want to wait till we come back with all these improvements and then give us a number to finance, or as Wendy mentioned, you can just tell us now what's your comfort level, and we can just, you know, like Wendy says, if you want to go 4.5.
Well, personally, I know Bob's got his comfort. I'm not quite comfortable with a level in my mind yet, personally. I'd rather wait till we see more of the costs and have more of a concrete idea. That's just my thought.
No, I feel the same way. I think it'd be interesting to go down the list
Yeah,
here
me
and
too.
see where we're at financially, and then we've got a vision.
I agree.
And then you're going to rate these as far as prioritize all these items.
Yeah, that's what I do.
Because some of them at the bottom, you know, we're not going to need to do maybe right away.
Yeah.
Maybe we do it a year from now or whatever.
Well, I think it's important that Mark be given the okay to go at the $4 million level, and then when we get all the information, we can choose to go lower. We just can't choose to go higher.
Why can't we do that today? The idea
That's what I'm saying,
No,
today.
go into closed session, go through this, and get a vision on what we're
Well-
talking
Well,
about.
I don't
we
think
don't know
that's
the numbers.
That's not
discussable
gonna
in
happen today.
We don't know the numbers.
The only thing we can do in closed session is discuss negotiate about the contingencies that the sellers might, because that would affect our purchase price. But we do have, if what the director is suggesting is everyone were comfortable with 4 million, then that's the number that Mark is looking for.
That's the number we plugged into.
We're
the
gonna have to
resolution.
back into it somehow,
Yeah.
some way.
That's what I thought.
Right, if that's where you want it to be, yes, then we could update the resolution to bring that forward if it's not too late to add that. I guess it's already on the agenda.
It's on the agenda, we don't have the resolution on
Right.
there, but that is on the agenda.
Right. We could certainly bring that forward. It does make a lot of sense as well for you to figure out the cost of these improvements you want to do and then look at the whole package at once. The only little bit of delay on that would be the timing of getting those costs together and then the timing to schedule a special meeting so that you could adopt that resolution. But
Personally, I'm more comfortable with that idea of getting these costs more lined up and, like Jim said, prioritizing them. We have to call a special meeting to do that. I don't want to rush into this thing for Thursday night. I mean, that's just too quick for my thinking. And I would rather wait until we have this. Okay, so maybe we're going to go with 4 million, and we come back and go, oops. I don't want to do that. I want to make sure personally that we're solid with what we're going forward with.
But now, don't we have to pay money tomorrow?
Well, that's what we're talking about, closed session.
We'll do that in
Yeah,
closed session.
yeah.
Well, can I hypothetically, so if we put in a resolution that says not to exceed $4 million in financing, and then we go forward, we have $570,000 that we apply towards the building. So we know it's 3.75 plus some closing costs. So that would knock it down to, say hypothetically, what, 3.2? And then we could finance 3.2, we could pull some additional amounts out of reserves, or we could pay for all the improvements ourselves.
We're talking about taking it out of reserves to pay for the improvements.
Yeah, yeah. So that kind of sounds like where everyone is heading. Is that general ballpark where people are heading, more or less?
Well,
I'm not heading anywhere until I
No,
know. the
I'm
bid
just
process.
trying to, I want to go figure out how much money I might need to come up with and where I'm
I
going to
think
do
they're
it. So I
saying
want to
that they're comfortable with the max of 4 million, if need be.
Financing.
finance.
So, you're talking about like 3.2 in
Well,
that scenario, right?
Well, I was kind of, going with what they wanted to be down around 3.
Yeah.
And so in my mind, I was trying to, sorry, this is all about me, but I was trying to say, well, if we used all of our fixture fees towards the purchase of the building, and then I had to come up with money for doing the improvements myself, then I was trying to figure out, how much, where and how much I was going to come up with. And if you wanted to even buy down the loan more, then 3.2, that's why I was trying to figure out, a couple people were talking about financing only 3, so it's a big
No,
span.
just one. No,
Just
just
one.
one. I
Oh.
would suggest that
All the
we
time.
go with Mark for 4 million max now. And then when we come to ready for the loan, then we can determine the amount.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, that's what I
When
would
we
suggest.
get more information,
I would suggest that today in
Yeah.
the open session, if we give Mark the okay to move to 4 million.
I think the way I understand what you're saying, Art, is if I'm going to be comfortable with a number, and 4 million is the number, we've already committed almost $600,000 out of our fixture fees.
That's it.
Well, we haven't committed, I'm sorry. We discussed the fact that we can use almost $600,000 of our fixture fees towards the improvements. I mean, we're going to take the 4 million and pay for the building and the closing costs, right?
Well, not really, because we haven't decided what our total costs are going to be. We give Mark the okay for the 4 million, he gets that process started. then when we come to make the loan, it could be a lot less, but we don't know that total until we meet again.
Or more,
No, I understand that.
I don't think it would be more.
I don't know.
I don't think we'd go over
The board can set limits, and Jim has asked staff to prioritize stuff, so it does not have to exceed whatever we want it to be.
One of the
I
things.
mean, we can
that-
leave the diocese out, and we can leave a
Yeah,
lot of
yeah,
stuff.
so I would throw that baby out.
No, I like the diet.
Yeah, I do too.
I guess one of the things in my mind, I was trying to make it easier with the reporting for fixture fees, is it's much easier to use those in a lump sum. It's harder to report the fixture fee expenditures if we're piecemealing it out for improvements. It's a little more effort. So in my mind, that's why I was saying, I was thinking we were gonna use that whole amount towards the building, and then, we would either finance the remodeling or come up with reserves.
Yeah, I said committed, that's definitely not the word I usually use, and I apologize.
So the direction, you want Mark to come back on Thursday with a resolution of $4 million?
I would say yes.
Yeah,
I'll go along with that.
I won't be here.
Well, then you won't be
it'll
voting,
be
will you?
it'll either be 4-0 or 3-1.
I mean, I think that's a smart.
Four votes get you
Four
there?
votes, yeah, do you need that?
Yeah, it's
Kind
just
of
a majority.
supermajority?
No, there's no
Okay.
supermajority that's required. Well, that's one question though. On the timing of the improvements themselves, do we have any idea on after the planning commission approves tonight on when you would get your costs in for all the improvements?
Yeah, I will get by Thursday.
No, I know. Do you have any idea on how long that may take?
Within a month, definitely. I want to get, as soon as possible, I want to meet with the consultant and try to hand my way.
And then the April date that we're throwing around on the close, is that, I know at one point in time there was these 4 30-day extensions. Is that going to be the firm date as to when they would end up closing, or is it still could be a couple months after that?
It could be a couple months out, yeah. So you gotta be ready, I guess. They'll give you 30-day notice, and then you'll.
In other words, don't pick the grand opening day yet.
Right, yeah.
It's gonna probably take 2 or 3 months to do that, kind of improve all the stuff.
Sure.
So,
You feel comfortable with 4 million?
That's entirely your direction.
I know that.
My
We like
my
your opinion.
my philosophy is the a building and improvements that you have are going to be used for a number of years, and that you would want as much of those costs that you could be paid for by future assessments over the period that the asset's going to be a benefit, and not taking any of those dollars out of reserve. So if it were me, I would add up all these costs and I would finance the whole thing. Separate using all of the fixture fees.
so you take the heat off of us during the down cycle too, in the summer.
And then I would do, yeah, exactly. Then I would do the other thing on the lease payments is when this building sells, one of the things that we have to talk about is this building, the bulk of the dollars of this building were purchased with fixture fees. And so they were restricted dollars. I'm assuming when it sells, they're probably going to assume that restriction that they had from the original source. That's going to be an Allen question. But they're going to have to be used for building services. So it makes a lot of sense that they get that you use that as making your lease payments going forward. But
Did you get the question he framed there? This building was originally purchased entirely with fixture fees. Do they have to go, like if we sold this building, does it have to go back into fixture fees, or is it essentially wash?
No, I think it's still an asset, so I think it would follow, the asset would transform into another form, but it stays as a fixture fee.
I have a comment. I don't know if that's accurate, because we were at one point saving like $100,000 a year. I don't know if that came out of fixture fees. It was like a sinking fund, so I don't know if that was a fixture fee.
You said
Yeah,
a
we
lot
did.
of
We
it.
did.
when this building was purchased, there was about, we wiped out the fixture fee fund at that time. There was close to $1 million in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we just have to go back and look at the records to see when this building sells, the first X dollars of the proceeds from that sale are going to have to replenish fixture fees because it was restricted money. And it needs to, as Alan said, it probably needs to retain that intended purpose.
We did have a line item.
We had $100,000 a year, I think we were saving per year when we were in the city. But I don't know if it was in the fixture fee account.
When I came on the board, there was a sinking fund.
It was
And
called
that was
sinking.
just after you purchased the building, and I don't remember the amount.
Yeah, so we'd have to research that. I just threw that out there for you.
I can look, I feel pretty confident about it. I think I booked the asset when I was here the first year because we were supposed to move in July 1st and it didn't finish until October. And so we were like renting more from the city. So I remember booking it, but I can double check and see the exact dollar amount.
I don't know what fund it went into, but I know that's where we had started, right there in the city.
Think back to something you said a minute ago about your comfort level, if I'm paraphrasing, let me know, was to finance as much as we could, obviously.
Right.
So the 4 million is not a realistic number as far as you're concerned.
I wouldn't think so. But, again, this is
I
a,
understand. I'm not asking you to tell us how to make up our minds, but you sort of intimated that 4 million is not a realistic number.
I think in looking at the list, if you're at 3,750,000 right now, I think that saying that this lobby was $150,000, I think you're going to, even if you take the 3,750,000, you're down to 3,200 when you use your fixture fees. That only gives you $800,000 to do improvements. Given that this was $150,000, I think you're above $800,000 in improvements here, if you did the whole thing. Don't know that. I'm just guessing.
So what's the direction then?
Let me ask a clarifying question. Alan, you said you're gonna research whether the sale of this building has to go back in the fixture fund. That's an important
And
question.
Wendy's gonna research the source.
Maybe then we should wait until we have more information.
Well, we can always go less than 4 million.
I know, but Mark is saying maybe we should do more than 40.
But I think Alan would probably agree, it's hypothetically, let's go worst case scenario is this building was entirely purchased with fixture fees. And so we get $1 million for this building. We put it back into the fixture fees and we use the $1 million to pay the lease payment on the asset over the next 4 years. Does that sound
Yeah,
3-4 years?
and just not to avoid having to research the question, but would the board have some thought about using it for something other than?
For CIP or something. But I like the idea of paying it off. I do too. Using it, say, for 4 years.
What can it be, what can fixture fees be used for?
That's we're working on that, but you have to do a study that justifies why you collected it. And the thing Wendy was talking about is in the future, if we do fixture fees, and it's sort of like, if you were to do it for a pump facility that only benefits one side of the city, then you have to apportion it, and it can only collect it from those folks. Whereas this was clean because it was something that all patrons, residents enjoyed equally, and made a clean nexus.
Well, but if we put $1 million back in fixture fees, we got the same problem, is figuring out how to.
Well,
So
it's the
if we-
same solution, really.
Yeah,
No,
if we,
it's very easy.
if we use it towards the lease payment, then it's going back towards an asset that benefits the entire.
Very clean.
How long is the amortization on this loan?
Recommend 20 years, the longest period that you could go.
Okay.
So am I hearing a different direction now, that you wanna wait till we get these numbers and then come back with Mark with the finance, or you still wanna go with 4 million?
I'm ready to go with 4 million.
I'm not. I probably wouldn't.
I don't think it's, at the end of the day, I don't think it's gonna be feasible to stick with 4 million, depending on which way we go.
Because I'm hearing three votes saying board members saying wait until we get these numbers, and we'll come back. And we have a special meeting with what you wanna finance.
And that's a month from now?
Dinner,
Could be earlier than that.
sooner than a month, within a month.
We need to do it.
As soon as I can, I'm gonna get on this, if you move forward, we'll get on this ASAP.
Horton ought to be able to do this in an hour, in a day.
I don't know about that, Bob. There's a lot of different vendors. He's gotta get
No, I mean,
bids
he
from.
does it for a living.
Oh, I know that,
What were you talking about?
What that means is you can't
The
even check
architect.
tomorrow.
Oh,
And architect.
maybe give us a ballpark.
Well, but I mean, that's more important than nothing.
at least the ballpark is similar. Okay,
All right,
Mark, comfortable?
I'm good.
so the next one is going to full session, talk about contingencies, and then on direction of the board as far as down payment goes.
Okay. Then, at this point, I will adjourn us to closed session regarding negotiations on the property at 290 Paul Arena.
Am I in or am I out on the closed session?
No, what you say, you stand, yeah,
Stand?
Okay. And I will reconvene the board back into open session. We will report out that the board has given staff direction to prepare the down payment on the building of $400,000. That's pursuant and contingent upon the decision tonight that's before the City of Costa Mesa Planning Commission. With their approval, then we'll go forward with our down payment. Okay.
Good, thank you.
Any other items for the meeting? Then I will adjourn us.